Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Why You Should Adopt a No-Code Technology Stack into Your Portfolio. I'm Teresa Resick, the Director of Market Intelligence Group, and AIM is your host and producer of today's event. And with me today from AIM, we have Bob Larrabee, and we also have Neil Young from FlowForma. FlowForma is the underwriter of today's webinar, and we thank them for their support. And thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started here, just want to offer a few pointers for viewing today's webinar. Because you've joined live, you can customize your own viewing experience, so feel free to open, close, or resize the different windows. And across the bottom of your screen is the list of the widgets that are available to you. And one of those widgets is Group Chat, and with that you can text chat with each other, but also with a few of us here at AIM. Do encourage you to ask questions of our speakers throughout our time together, and you can also ask for technical assistance. And use the Q&A feature for that, and that's to the left of the slide area. You can download a PDF of the presentation at any time. Just look to the resources list that's to the right of the slide area, and we have a number of excellent case studies that FlowForma is sharing with you, and there's some other resources in there. So I highly encourage you to take the time to download those resources. Just click on each of those titles. It'll open in a new browser tab, and you can save that and read that information later. At the end of the webinar, a brief survey will open on your browser, and the survey is also in the widget area, and I greatly value your feedback and appreciate it if you would take that survey. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to AIM.org's Resources Webinars page in just a few days. Right now, I'd like to introduce our featured speakers today. And with us, as I mentioned, we have Bob Larrabee from AIM, and he is the Vice President of Market Intelligence and is our Chief Analyst. Bob is an internationally recognized subject matter expert and thought leader with over 30 years of experience in the fields of information and process management, and is the recipient of the Senatum Brazil's ECM Pioneer Award. Bob is an author, lecturer, musician, photographer, and poet, and is an avid techie with a focus on process improvement and the application of advanced technologies to enhance and automate business operations. Bob's passion is to share his experience and expertise with individuals and businesses seeking to improve their information and process management practices. And we also have with us Neil Young, and Neil is the CEO of FlowForma. And FlowForma is the leading provider of business process management tools for Microsoft Office 365. Neil has spent a number of years driving FlowForma's SaaS business model and is passionate about revolutionizing the traditional BPM space to enable the business user to meet the needs of today's demanding digital workplace, all through an innovative no-code approach. And I'm very fascinated by this technology that FlowForma has, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about that. But first, I'm going to turn things over to Bob Larrabee to begin his talk today. Bob?
Well, thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Neil, for joining us and helping by underwriting this event. This is the way that we are able to bring such educational sessions to the marketplace and to the AIM community, and we really do thank you for that. I, too, am very fascinated with the whole concept of no-code. For many, many years, I've believed that the power should be placed in the hands of the users and the people who make the decisions. And the concept of no-code certainly does help us get there a lot faster and a lot closer to where we should be. So as Teresa mentioned, I am Chief Analyst at AIM, and one of the things that the group does, of course, is a lot of research. And in our recent research, as we were preparing for this, we pulled from the most recent research that we have in relation to process automation. And one of the things that we found was a focus on modernization, and that 81% of organizations recognize that modernizing their AIIM strategy is a must. They can't live in the days past, and we certainly can't work at the speed of paper anymore, and not just from a capture standpoint, but from processing standpoint. So we have to look at the realities of today, and we have to modernize our strategies and modernize our infrastructure. Process automation is actually one of the keys to this, and one of the things that we found was 75% of the respondents, 75% of those people that we polled, said that process automation is a must-do in their business models today. It's no longer a nice-to-have. They realize that they actually have to do this. They have to automate these business processes in order to be much more efficient, be much more consistent, and that's something that I keep hearing over and over again, is they're looking for consistency in their business processes, but also to gain tighter controls and insight into the business as well. So process automation is a must-do in the business models. And this leads to the idea of effectiveness. How effective are we operating, right, as an organization or as a business? And so when we looked at this in relation to that survey, the majority of organizations feel they do a fair job, notice I said fair, in managing their business processes effectively. So they understand, yeah, okay, we're okay at this, but they understand that there's a lot of room for improvement in a lot of areas that they could be much better in. And so this kind of leads us to a question, very basic question. What is a CIO supposed to do today if they're facing these challenges of modernization, automation, and effectiveness? How are they supposed to go about doing this, and how do they do it in a way that's conducive to a flexible business environment? So agility is key, being able to respond to changing business requirements, changing regulatory requirements, and so on. But at the same time, being much more impactful, I guess, is a good term to use when it comes to making changes within the organization and placing some of that power to change and change the way they work into the hands of the people who actually do the work. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on Neil, and Neil's going to share with us how FlowForma has seen this and how the idea of no-code or the ability to use no-code approaches really does have a positive impact on these businesses. So Neil, thanks again for being with us today. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm all ears, waiting and looking forward to seeing what you have here.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks for having me. And hi, everybody. So, and just to follow on from some of Bob's points there around the CIO and what we're finding in the marketplace, and when we deal with the hundreds of customers on a daily basis, that role of the CIO is changing compared to 5 years ago. So they now have a seat, across the board. They now have a seat at the top table, and that's presenting different goals. It's more strategic goals that they're dealing with. They're working with their fellow C-level leaders in terms of addressing these strategic goals in the business. So it's no longer seen as an operational cost-centric focus. So some of that still exists, obviously, keeping the lights on, but it's also working around, customer experience initiatives. How can they improve how they're interacting with the customers on the day-to-day work? And I think that's really shifting in terms of demands for the CIO. And those demands are coming across, and we're seeing this, at a high level. What are the three things right at the top of their agendas? There is this phenomenon of the coder crisis. So, there is a global shortage. All companies, and you will hear companies say, every company today is becoming a software company. So, they could be in the electronics business, but they are now moving into software with IoT, etc. So there's a huge demand for coders. There's still obviously talent coming through that won't move away, but CIOs need other options, other viable options to deal with the coder crisis. Digital transformation, we go back a few years again, we would have seen, is this are these new buzzwords, new terminology? But it's absolutely real today. And there's a couple of drivers here. One being the next generation of employees and staff that are coming in, very talented. And you see that they expect everything to be digital. They don't understand why invoices and contracts, some still exist through the post or physical copies of contracts. They assume everything should be digitized. And through the nature of, they're just so used to social media and everything being digital, and also they expect everything to be on their mobile phones. So, you're dealing with the next generation of workers, and then you're also dealing with in terms of customer demands. So dealing with time to value on projects and solutions and what customers are expecting, let alone what your internal staff are demanding, but how fast they want things solved so they can deal with the customers better and those solutions better. So they're the challenges that we're when we speak to CIOs. That's what we're seeing, and that's why they're liking the approach around the no-code technologies such as ourselves. You know, and I heard a great phrase a few weeks back around the consumeration of IT. You know, it's very much becoming the future where technologies are becoming more consumerized so they can be dealt with by the business users and by the next generation of staff coming into the organization. So, you know, how does FlowForma itself help with these challenges? So we focus a lot on when came up with the original idea, we would have been very much around empowering the business analyst. And now we're very much seeing that as empowering the business user, reducing that coder demand. And what you find with the technologies, they coexist. So this is not about rip and replace against other technologies that exist in the organization, such as, you know, CRM, ERP tool sets that are doing very strong providing very strong solutions to the business. But it's about augmenting that and adding to that. And you think of gaps in apps within those technology platforms. It's what technologies such as ourselves can bring to the table and reduce that coder demand and empower the business. And also what we find is the business know the process problems better. So they understand what they need to solve. So let's arm them with the tools. And, you know, but allow IT and allow the CIO with his team, allow the IT division to provide governance, training, advice, you know, and integration capabilities. And that's what we have seen. We have worked with very progressive IT directors, IT managers, CIOs that realize the demands are very strong, and how can they connect better with the business audience. And if you see the demands and you keep those demands just within IT, then the backlog will just be too severe to deal with. So that's how we're helping today. In terms of, you know, digital transformation and the different types of solutions, we tend to categorize them to help with our customers and help them deal with the challenges that they receive. Categorize them into three buckets essentially. You have your everyday processes, so these could be your IT, finance, HR forms. So your admin within your organization. They can be dealt, you know, internally focused. They can be dealt with quite quickly. You know, a couple of hours we've seen people build out some of these processes and get them live with the technology. And then you're moving up into more organizational specific. So in your industry and in your business, processes that exist that may already are managed, but it could be spreadsheets with email combined and moving around the organization. And how can you solve those process problems, because you realize when someone's not there for 2 weeks that there's a gap, and you know, on a larger scale that can have huge ramifications. So that's another area, another level that we look to solve. And as you move up this spectrum, you're achieving more ROI, and you're having more of an impact on the digital transformation strategy. And then the final piece, and we typically see customers starting in either the first or second bucket and then moving into CX impact processes once they're familiar. So extending processes that are internal with their external customers and connecting that seamlessly with the customers, suppliers, what have you. So external customers to the business. And that's really advancing the digital process transformation. In a few minutes, I'll go through a demonstration, a walkthrough of the product, and you know, mainly focus on organizational specific and everyday, but to be aware that you can connect these to external suppliers, customers, processes. And in terms of just how getting to time to value, what we find with these types of technologies, you want an onboarding program. You can't call out no code and then offer a large volume of consultancy days to get people working with the product. So, and it has to be low volume of training. So we very much engage our customers around and what we call our Sure Start program. But it's about onboarding very quickly, pick a process, get them onboarded with the process into their company, but also at the same time give them learning resources, give them implementation advice, And after we go live, then we'll also provide advice as well. But it's very much about getting that quick time to value and enabling the end customer with the no-code technologies. And we call this very much, you talk about waterfall, talk about agile, we very much talk about test and learn delivery and keep refining. So there's no time boxes, there's no constraints on the sprints, but keep refining the process with your audience and move it into live. So let me move in to a walkthrough of the product. So what you see here is the digital process workplace. And what we have here, quick dashboard of how many processes are active that need my work. You also have a dashboard here of any processes that are outside of SLA that I need to address quickly. Now I've got a grouping of my processes, and again, within organizations this varies, and also within different sites in a company this varies as well, depending on where they're accessing. So we've got a grouping of different processes, and then we have some admin features that we'll have a quick scan through as well. So you might find users within the organization just have access to these first couple of workplaces. So if I select in and click into a process, these are my open processes, and I'm going to click into the middle process there of incident management, and that's going to bring up my incident. I'm on step 2, as you can see at the top here. I'm going to bring up my incident management process, and I need to fill in some more information. So from an end user perspective, very clean user interface, very simple. It's moving through steps of a process. There's obviously quite a bit of intelligence behind that, and we'll come to that. So that's from the end user perspective. And if I just want to kick off an incident management process, I click on the icon there to create a new one, and this will bring me to step 1, bring me through my useful definitions before I move through the process. And this again is all really important about making it really easy, and that there's no complexities around understanding how to work with these processes. And now if I move to the bottom tab area and click into flow definitions, I click in here and I see incident management of one of my business process flows. I move in here, and this is Flow Designer, and this is the crux of the product. And everything stems from Flow Designer. This is how you build it, and this is the tool set for the business analysts and for the business consultants and the business users and the power users within the organizations. What you have at the top here is you have the name of the flow, which is incident management, and then below that then you have the steps, and then if you click into those steps you will see the questions, and then there's business rules. To move over to the right hand side, if I click on that icon there, which is going to show you the visual workflow designer, this is just a graphical representation of the flow. So this is a great facilitator for workshops, whereby even at the start, and this will just be a blank canvas, mapping out with your end users, okay, let's very simply let's move through the 4 or 5 different stages of the process without putting people's names on it, and then you start getting into that granularity. Obviously you can see here you can have parallel groups as well, processes moving to different people at the same time and so on. And some of these steps may be skipped depending on an answer you might receive on a previous step, for example, and that's a way of keeping this simple yet achieving quite powerful results. If I click into the next icon on the top right there, around the visual layout designer, so again making this intuitive, and this is the key element of these tool sets. I want to brand and put my own logo in here. I want to put my color teams around this. I want to separate and put columns in, and I can design all my different steps and layouts within this simple and effective tool. And then finally, one area that we spent quite a bit of time on bridging the gap and making sure we reduce the technical elements of the technologies around security. So very simply here you see the security of the flow and who has access, read and edit access to that flow, who do I deny access to if I wish. But you can go down to the step level as well, and that's very valuable in today's environment of regulation with GDPR or whatever may impact your region or your industry. And that's a very intuitive, again, feature set. If I move beyond then and click into a step, you'll see my questions, my fields basically below that. Some of them are actually hitting based on an answer below that. If I move over to the right, I can see that's actually a business rule that's been activated on this step. I click into that, edit that business rule, and this is just an example of generate a document. So this is where I can go and select a document template. What folder do I want to place that in? Do I want to convert that to PDFs? This will integrate with a tool such as Microsoft Word and let you build out your document template You can put watermarks behind these, etc. So that ability to generate documents where you see fit is quite important. And you might want to generate a document, put into a PDF, send it out as an email. All those business rules are available within the product. And you see here on the right-hand side, we've got workflow controls, some more business rules such as data integration, where we're passing information into SQL, HubSpot, CRM, Dynamic CRM, some examples, Active Directory. So trying to really, all these features are all configurable. And some more communication features such as sending emails, adding watermarks, generating documents, as we mentioned. And there's some more there around deeper permissions and SharePoint actions, for example. And, that's the crux really, if I talk around this Flow Designer piece, that's the crux of keeping this all integrated and that it's all fully understandable with some minimal training. We then look at some questions that we can build up fields within the product. I've taken 3 examples here, but, a single line of text and what you wish to ask for and the default values, etc. Things that you would expect. Repeating tables, which we put a lot of work in, whereby you can add these into your form, your electronic digital forms. Digital signature is very important, but again, simplifying that into the technology set. And what we then find as well, if you think of who we want to arm in the business, we then allow people to get a snapshot of their process. So this is a simple leave request process with 3 steps, but so that'll output specifications, and they can lock that down, and somebody goes in and modifies a process. So again, depending on your industry, and we've taken quite a lot of feedback on the product to get where we are today, but so it will define and push this out in a Word document that's fully auditable. And some other areas, a very simple snapshot here, but obviously more complex with live processes, where you can see where are the bottlenecks in my process. I see that in the second step there, record incident, and that's outside SLA. It's delayed, so I can click in, I can see where the issues are. Very relevant to lean projects within your business, and this just comes with the product as default. And we obviously have other reporting layers we can extend with, but we really want people to be able to adopt the product and really just within that product do all they need to do with digital process automation technology. You have to provide online learning and help, and we again a lot of work and guides within the product. So not just our online help system, but we also have a self-paced learning platform as well, the FlowForma Academy. That's all about driving support and enabling again the end users and the power users. Some more advanced features that we have found worked really well is in terms of voting. So instead of having 20 parallel steps across 20 people in the business around new product innovation ideas, they can use these features here to simplify the process. You can have people in the room voting on decisions, for example. But this, we use this ourselves for certifying our sales teams and voting on them as they go through the certification process, and we produce a PDF at the end, etc. But some more advanced features within there. And I suppose just to kind of wrap that piece and bring it back, and we obviously eat our own dog food, but these are it's a no-code digital process automation platform. It will achieve. It's not just about solving simple process problems. It will solve a range of process problems from small to enterprise organizations. These technologies are augmenting, as I mentioned earlier on, other technology sets within organizations, and it's a very quick, smart way to get yourself into a place with your digital transformation strategy, but actually achieving real results without just saying you're ticking a box there. You will achieve quite a lot of results. So just from a FlowForma side, if you like to take a trial, that was just a very quick whistle-stop walkthrough. By all means, take a trial, and there's a guided tour in there. And you can request a deeper demo, and we can help you with that. We're featured in one of the latest Forrester reports. So by all means, request your free copy of that from our website, and we'll have no problem providing that to you. and appreciate everybody listening to me today. And I'm just going to hand back to Bob now for some questions.
Hey, Neil, thank you very much. That was really enlightening, I got to tell you. The other thing, too, that I'm going to mention at this point, I'm going to bring it back to the previous slide so that people can just use this as a reminder. But there's also a bunch of case studies down in the resources section that are downloadable as well. So not only take advantage of this free trial offer and that free copy of Refocusing Process Automation, but also we encourage you to go ahead and download some of those case studies that are in the resources section. So yes, we do have a couple questions, Neil. First one, and this is kind of an interesting one because we all know that Office 365 is out there and, Microsoft is kind of everywhere. And this particular question says, we have Office 365. Is onboarding the FlowForma product simple?
Yeah, so we have found, so effectively it's a 3 to 5 day exercise. And we typically bring customers through that over the space of time that works with them. So that might be over a time period of 4 weeks, could be over 2 weeks, but typically it's over 4 to 8 weeks, which suits them, lets them get up to speed, lets them come back and ask more questions. But it really is that it's from a working day perspective, it's 3 to 5 days, working days, yeah.
3 to 5 working days, that's great. Another question that we have here is, I like the idea of enabling external people to participate in our processes. Is that a big project? Is that a big project to undertake?
No, not so we've had, so we had a recent, we may have talked about it before in a previous webinar, but we had a recent deployment of our customer experience platform, which is the external facing version of the product within 3 weeks, including the process. And effectively, there's already a connection feature within there, a secure connection. So effectively, what happens is we spin up another environment and we place a public-facing version of the process on that, and they have the existing process internally, and we connect it to. And we did that for a customer recently within 3 weeks. They already had the existing internal process, but and security in all those areas are covered, so that can be quite quickly approached and with all security concerns addressed.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a term that you used a little bit earlier, and your answers to these questions are certainly addressing that. You used the term filling the gaps in the apps. I really love that term because it's exactly what you're describing is you're filling in those holes, right? You're helping people fill in those gaps in the apps and in their processes. Yeah. The final question that I'm going to give, because we're kind of getting close here, but I do have one more that I'm going to ask you, and this one reads, do you need to have any technical skills to automate and deploy processes within FlowForma? That's a really good question.
So no is a short answer, and slightly longer answer is we like to connect to IT to make sure the applications are governed, but that's always dependent on the customer's requirements. But one of the key areas that would have demonstrated very, very quickly earlier on would have been the security wizard. So essentially, IT may give somebody a site in SharePoint, they're happy for that business user to go and work away and build out their HR processes, for example. And FlowForma will allow the business user test, learn, build, deploy, and roll out the processes. We always like to connect with IT, and I think that's advisable, and that they're there to govern. But that might be just them providing a site. So yes, absolutely, it is designed, and that's the premise of the product. It's designed for business users.
Awesome, and you're right. Keeping IT engaged is something that's very important. And it's a team effort, right? It comes down to being a team effort, a team sport. So, well, thank you very much, Neil. At this point, I am going to turn it back over to Teresa as we are coming up to the end of the session here. Teresa?
Thank you, Bob. And we have been listening to Neil Young of FlowForma, and very much want to thank Bob Larrabee with his insights from the research that came out. And if you're interested in getting more information on that research that Bob was mentioning, if you go to aim.org/research, you'll find a whole bunch of information and lots of other articles and ebooks and a whole bunch of other things that Bob and his team have written. We have a great staff of analysts here that just has a lot of really wonderful insights to share. So check that out. Also check out AIIM's training that we offer. And we do provide a variety of instructor-led, in your office, at designated locations. We also offer online training, just a whole lot of different ways that we can conduct the training, in addition to the different topic areas that we have. So I encourage you to go to aims.org/training and learn more about that. And since we are at the end of our webinar time, just want to thank FlowForma for their sponsorship. Remind you again to download those resources. Please take the survey. We have recorded this, and so I do invite you to, we will be sending out the link to this replay, so I invite you to have your colleagues come back and listen to this, because even that brief overview that Neil gave of how the product works is really very helpful. So as we bring this webinar to a close, I just want to ask each of our speakers for a closing thought or a key takeaway. And let me start first with Bob Larrabee from AIIM. Your closing thought.
Well, thank you, Teresa, and thanks everybody for being with us. I think what we've learned here today is that the reality is it is possible to help transform business processes without the need for extreme technical skills. As Neil pointed out, we should have IT involved, of course, but putting the power back in the hands of the users, this is something that's really important to businesses today in order to keep that flexibility and agility that they need in responding to customer requests and enhancing the customer experience. So I encourage everybody, check it out. Check out this whole no-code approach.
Thank you, Bob. And Neil Young from FlowForma, your closing thoughts today.
Yeah, I think, and to add to Bob's points there, I think if you look at the coder crisis, and maybe a crisis is coming across a bit extreme, but it is something that's viable there, and those, we are seeing technologies across the board around consumerization of IT, and it's very much becoming a reality. So I think it's the right approach to add them to the technology stack within companies, and so it's just seeing what fits, but it's a reality, and the technologies are there today now to deal with that. So I think that will be my closing view.
Thanks, Neil. And thank you, everyone, for your time today. Greatly appreciate that. And from AIIM, this is Teresa Resick, and we will see you with our next event.